It is time for game 2 here, ladies and gentlemen, in this matchup. And I think a lot of people might have been surprised to watch HasuObs take away game number 1 from HuK just moments ago, Husky. And before we get to the positionings, were you surprised at all of that game 1 outcome?
I gotta hand it to the winner in that last game. He basically played perfectly, and also HuK did at multiple times. His very first Zealot took a lot of additional damage that it really didn't need to, just because of the positioning, and that played a huge role. And then also, just to kind of seal the fate, the nail in the coffin, etc., was those 5 Stalkers that he donated. Maybe if it was a Zealot or 2, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal, but he really needed his own Stalkers rather to try and kill the Colossus of HasuObs. So Hasu playing perfectly, HuK not playing to his fullest potential, which I think is very important to notice in this game number 2 on Terminus, is that this map is a huge macro style map. HuK is going to be as comfortable as it gets on this map, just because he's playing so much StarCraft over there in Korea, that if this game goes to the late game, he is going to, I think, have the advantage. And so if he tries to drag it out, then I think he will be able, we'll see much better play than we did in the last game. But as always in this matchup, it can come down to an early 4-gate rush, and that can be it. So we'll just have to see if he can micro a little bit better this time.
Yeah, and we'll just kind of have to wait and see which way these players go. HuK is our blue Protoss in the north position, and we have got HasuObs from mouz is the red Protoss in the west position. Now, talking a little bit about this 4-leaf clover, as Artosis puts it, rotational symmetry is what we have on this map, which basically means that if you spawn side by side closely with your opponent, there's a little bit of an advantage that you can have if your main is looking at the third of your opponent. I know it might be a little confusing, but it means that if you decide to get that third base up that does have that rich Vespene Geyser, it is going to be a little bit more susceptible to drops that do not take as long to get from your base to your opponent's. So it also might change the way that these players decide to actually take on the mid to late game. They might choose to expand the opposite direction, or it might mean that they've got to defend differently on their expansion. So it's something that we'll have to see, because of course, as you mentioned, Husky, a lot of things can be decided early on in a PvP matchup like this.
Once again, HuK's Cybernetics core is a little bit delayed. He seems to just enjoy doing that, realizing he doesn't need his Warp Gate seconds earlier than you get it if you go for the straight Cybernetics core. And both players, looks like they're going to go ahead and get out a Stalker first. And actually, no, excuse me, HuK does have his 1 Zealot out now, and he is going to be chasing around that probe right now. So both players are going for a standard opener. HuK deciding to squeeze out that Zealot just a little bit earlier. And the thing about getting a Zealot out early in Protoss versus Protoss is that you're always going to use that Zealot no matter what, so it's usually not very detrimental to get that, as where if you go against a Terran player or something, it can get kited around by those Marauders. It will always be useful in a Protoss versus Protoss. So now it does look like HuK's actually chasing this probe, does not want it to escape here in the center of the map, and he will indeed take that out. And he does have the map presence in the center of the map, but as both players are just going to start teching up here, we'll see what builds they decide to go. So far, it does look like both players opting to get 3 gateways instead of that 4-gate right away, which I think is a pretty good choice given the map, just because it's such a macro-heavy map. If you do a 4-gate and you can't bust up the ramp, you are going to be in a lot of trouble. And so very similar openers here so far.
Yeah, and the big difference right now in these 2 players is that HuK chose to get a second gas and put down his Robo while we've got the other 2 gateways building up right now. So although we only have 3 gates over here, now we've got HasuObs grabbing his second gas. So his Robo is just going to be a little bit behind HuK's. And how will that affect the ground army? Of course, with every move that they make, something else is kind of offset by that. But we do have all the warp gates opening right now, 3 of them, and about 60% done on that robotics facility. Meanwhile, HasuObs and HuK having a little battle for the middle right here in vision, and it is oh so important, Husky. So I like to see this occurring in the middle of the map.
HuK does have a proxy pylon located kind of in the bottom center of the map. Always good to try and hide those. And one thing in HasuObs' base that I want to point out is he's just now opening one of those warp gates, and that one was a normal gateway for quite a while. That does make a huge difference in your army composition, but for now it looks like HasuObs tried to peek into HuK's base. Of course, HuK does have his defense at the top of the ramp. That is not going to happen. There is a Twilight Council just wrapping up now in HasuObs' base. Is he going to go for Blink? Yes, he is starting that the second the building finished, so he is definitely going to be going for Blink Stalkers, while HuK is going for a much more standard. He has one Immortal out right now, getting out the second Immortal as well, and it doesn't look like he has the Colossus tech, but he does have a second pylon now in the center of the map. So he's playing very peculiar, and HasuObs kind of scrambling around trying to find these pylons. Both players actually putting proxy pylons right near each other, so this could be a very interesting situation where they're warping in units behind each other.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is HasuObs does not see HuK's. HuK's having that height advantage there. We'll get vision of that. Here we've got second Immortal coming out. And although the Immortals didn't do a ton of damage in that last matchup, I do feel like it's, a right choice here. Blink, it can go both ways for a player like that. Like you mentioned during the last game, getting those surrounds and taking those guys out real quickly. Of course, if you catch your opponent by surprise with a few extra Immortals that they don't have, it can just tear through those Stalkers, have some Zealots to do the rest. We have not seen any sort of expansion out of either of these guys. Blink is now done, and the robotics facility just going down for Hasu. Does look like Hasu wants to take his nine Stalkers and move them up here. Oh my god, that one volley from the Immortal is going to be scary, as it doesn't kill off that Stalker, but certainly he's like, ow, that hurt. And here he might move forward once again, trying to take out the Zealot, but HuK is not having any of it. He will chase his opponent to the middle of the map. Meanwhile, reinforcements coming in on both sides. HuK's eastern pylon is going to get taken out, but no, stopped. Oh my god, there's action all over the map.
Yeah, this is where it's going to get really intense, where high PM is going to pay off. HuK probably going to be the advantage player in that battle. He does once again lose an additional Stalker, though. Needs to be careful. Now, the thing about HuK's army is that it is much more powerful in a straight-up battle. So it's going to be up to Hasu to do the micro that he needs, and he's actually going to get these two Stalkers on the right side, and he should be able to escape with his Blink this fine. So HuK is, once again, he loves charity, is donating all of those Stalkers, even one Blink on Hasu's Stalker, keeping that weakened one alive. And HuK is doing everything he can to trap this army. He's going to take out this pylon right now, but can the Blink Stalkers actually get away? HuK does have Immortals up here all by themselves. Could he get focused down? No, gonna blink and run away. And there is also, it looks like, a possible counterattack on the left side. The Stalkers, though, do turn around.
Yeah, actually, I was kind of hoping that we would see that counterattack happen. I think it's actually perfect as he chases down this army, but he's now too close. Oh my god, Stalkers getting caught up once again. Immortals are way, way behind. One Immortal does come up from the south, does do some damage. Oh my god, he could cut him off with these other two. He's going to be able to take off two Stalkers. He wants to make a HasuObs sandwich, and they will blink away. And man, Blink has just been a deciding factor here for HasuObs. If he did not have Blink on those Stalkers, it would be a crazy thing. But what's happening now is that HuK is putting himself in a position where he could move forward and just try to counterattack. Meanwhile, the same thing could happen over here by Asa, but there's two more Immortals waiting, and this is not good, as they will be forced to move back, and HuK has a lot of different options here.
Yeah, he is going to put on this pressure now. Now, all he has to deal with is Zealots, so it will be micro. Zealots take a long time to actually kill, though. Now, I did see the Robotech, or the Robo-Bay for Hasu, but he does not have a Colossus on the way. HuK actually shooting a pylon in Hasu's base, but there's still more microing in the center of the map. I've been keeping an eye on the APM tab. Both players are playing furiously right now, but HuK has so many Immortals. Looking at the units tab, he has 6 Immortals, absolutely out of control. If he can engage these Stalkers directly, they are going to melt away immediately. HuK going for a much more safe army, and just looking at the map, HuK is individually microing 3 different armies to try and get us around on these Stalkers. Yes, they do have Blink, but can they actually escape?
No, this is actually just absolutely amazing what we're seeing right now. HuK is cutting off his opponent's retreating path, and his opponent's having to be very, very smart. Caught up on the corner there. We will see some more Stalkers go down. There's a ton of damage. Here we come, another army from HuK. He manages to sneak around that one, and he's just juking these Immortal. There he finds another one, blinks out of the way. Observer coming in to try to help at least someone find out where HuK's army was, and HuK successfully kept that army from his opponent's base for oh so long. I would have to say a solid 3-4 minutes in the middle of that map. His Observer is now going to check and chase around HuK's army, but those Immortals did an amazing job in doing a lot of damage there. Sure, we did see HuK lose a few of those units, but he safely got his Nexus up. He's going to now take over the middle of the map, and at some point, Hasu has to be saying, how exactly am I going to deal with these Immortals here? Because we now have number 6 marching out onto the field, and Husky, this has just been an incredible game here, and I think really shows off a lot of potential of this map as well.
Absolutely, and HuK's APM during that was insane. That is so hard to do, to individually micro 3 armies, and also when you're going against Blink Stalkers, no small feat at all. Now, the Immortal count, HuK is kind of known for getting out a lot of Immortals, and one problem that a lot of Protoss have is they'll only get 1 or 2, and then they don't really do anything. But when they're in these large of numbers, even if they're attacking Zealots, they're still doing damage, and on top of that, he is also following it up with Colossus of his own. So even if he's 1 or 2 Colossus behind, he has 6 Immortals to make up for that. So as long as he micros them well, especially if he catches those Colossus out of position, it will be they will pay for themselves for sure. Now HasuObs has a bajillion Zealots. He actually has 15, which now 18, while HuK does only have the 7. But once HuK gets out those Colossus, Zealots become less and less effective because it's just so much splash damage. You can see the first Colossus just now spawning. Thermal Lance upgrade is on the way for HuK and is already completed for Hasu. So if Hasu wants to make the most of his upgrade advantage, he needs to move out within the next 20 to 30 seconds. And is it going to be enough, though? Because just looking at the units tab, he's only 1 Colossus advantage and Zealots, which are not ideal at this stage of the game.
Yeah, I want to just take a quick look. You know, the Army tab shows our armies very, very similar to one another, 120, 116. HuK has the map positional advantage right now. I think, you know, he does have the 1 less Colossus, but he knows that there is nothing going to be coming out of his opponent's base unless it was to swing around the side. He'll probably have a 3rd up here if it actually gets to that point. But the second for Hasu, the natural, is up. And I think you called it, Husky, is that those Zealots are certainly going to be the scariest thing until a few more Colossus get out of here. I think the threat of these Immortals here, as long as he can keep them away from HasuObs' Zealot and really handle those effectively, he'll have no problem taking out the remainder of the units that are on the bottom. But HasuObs, you know, he's going to have a higher Colossus count, and so if he can control those well, you know, he could have a very favorable battle here against HuK.
Now, just a couple minor things for both players. HuK does have a probe advantage, which is showing his income slightly ahead of Hasu. So obviously, every second that goes on, that is HuK pulling further and further ahead as far as the mineral count. Looks like Hasu's going to move out. HuK does not have a single sentry in his army. That could play a huge role in reducing the amount of damage. I mean, Hasu, since he's going against so many Immortals and Stalkers, that Guardian Shield will be very effective. You cannot use Force Field against Colossus because they will just step on them and open up those paths. But we should see Guardian Shield used pretty heavily by Hasu, trying to do everything he can to reduce the incoming damage as much as possible, because HuK is tied now with the Colossus. I do believe, though, that Hasu will get a 4th one out pretty soon. Actually, HuK has 2 Colossus on the way, once again going for that double robo, which is so good once your second base is able to kick in. And Hasu, instead of going for that double robo himself, is going to expand. This could be devastating, though, because he is all of a sudden going to be going against a lot of Colossus, while he himself has not been making as many.
Yeah, and HuK is also taking his 3rd here. One other thing to keep in mind as the Observer checks the middle, we still have this proxy pylon going on here down here by HuK, and you just never know if that could come into play later on. Now, HasuObs is going to make a very ballsy move and decide to move through the middle of the map. He does manage to snipe an Observer, which is good, but he could run into the army of HuK, and he does here, taking a little bit of damage. Now HuK's army is going to be able to chase. It's going to take a while for the rest of that ball to mix up, and if HuK decides to engage, the Stalkers are going to be on the wrong side of this engagement. Of course, he wisely pulls back out. He takes away the vision of his opponent, and again continues to just put his opponent on tilt a little bit here, not knowing what's going on, not being able to leave the base. And look at HuK's unit advantage now, 173 to 147. Unit tab, he is up a few more probes, 4, but he has managed to at least catch up to 4 Colossus. But the 6 Immortals, and here we go, the battle commences.
It does look like the Colossus is able to soften up all of those Zealots with the first volley that they did. The Immortals actually being extremely effective as well. He is trying to focus down the Stalkers. However, the Blink Stalkers on the right side actually got to take out almost every single Colossus of HuK. However, the army on the left side is sweeping through as well for HuK. He is going to take out those first, and he was able to hang on to 3 Colossus. This just shows you how important a slight economic advantage can be. And also, what's important about this is HuK, he had the economic advantage, he pushed out, and he actually hit Hasu right when the Hasu was trying to catch up in the probe count, and so that's exactly when HuK moved in. The timing of that was phenomenal, and the Blinkstalker micro was pretty good in that game, but you can see the GG there a moment ago. HuK able to take that, and he attacked at the perfect time while HasuObs was opting to get his army up quicker and then go for macro. HuK decided to go for macro and then his army, so that window that he attacked with was actually perfect right when those two robos kicked in, and I gotta hand it to HuK. This is the HuK we all know and love, is using the Immortals, and the Colossus timing was perfect. Took, I think, Hasu by complete surprise, and HuK showing us that he's not going to get eliminated 2-0 here. He definitely wanted to tie this up, and we are going to move on.
Yeah, and the other thing that I'd point out in that game, Husky, that was just beautiful. They're really, we always talk about maps. There's a larger surface area to go on in the map. I mean, although it may have looked like it needed the Benny Hill theme song behind it, the stalker play, and then what HuK was doing to effectively split up his army and try to deal as much damage to this roaming stalker army as he could, that played out huge because HuK was getting a lot done in that time, and doing a lot of damage. He was harassing the front as well. He delayed that natural expansion of Hasu. So, just goes to show map control and being confident about the armies that you're having out there, as well as just being smart, thinking ahead there and going, okay, if I position these guys here and these guys here, he can blink around all he wants, but eventually he's going to run into my armies. Just some really well thought out play there. And, HasuObs had the same thing in game one. Really well thought out play. Caught those stalkers off. This time it was HuK's turn. And now, just like game two, Husky, we have a third game scenario. I am so excited. So let's take our break, and when we return, it's mouz.HasuObs versus TLAF Liquid HuK. Who will move on in the TSL3? Don't go away.